Why trying to look rich is keeping you broke. People have absolutely no idea that the most expensive habit they have is chasing status. And your image is probably killing you more financially than anything else. Now, obviously, I'm one of the first to admit that there's reasons why people struggle to survive, all kinds of things like, the cost of living and unlivable wages and so forth. But let's be real for just a moment. And let's also admit that one of the number one reasons why most people who've made any kind of money at all, and are capable, that are not disabled, that are functioning, that can contribute to society and do make some level of money, is that your status is making you bankrupt. There's a hidden cost to looking more successful than you actually are. And I think a lot of people don't really want to admit this, but if you want to make a lot of money and be in a position where you can leverage wealth, then you need to learn that there's a difference between status and wealth. Status is loud, in your face. Wealth is quiet. Wealth is behind the scenes. People who want wealth move quietly, and when they obtain wealth, you don't know about it. You know very little about it. It comes out in other ways. Now, I understand, and again, I want to remove all judgment from anything I'm saying. I am aware that it is a survival instinct for a lot of people to climb the social hierarchy. And so image to them and status signaling kind of feels protective. And there's a lot of psychology and studies that have been done that have proven this to be more than just a theory. But what it's doing is it's draining you of your flexibility and your options and your leverage. And that's not good. I mean, the need to appear more stable than you actually are or more successful than you actually are prevents you from actually achieving it. It prevents you from becoming successful, and it prevents you from having that stability that you so desperately really need, but spend all your time putting up a facade that you already have. This is a real problem with a lot of people. It's not a strategic move, it's a defensive move. People spend to avoid judgment. You're doing it because you don't want to be judged. You don't want to be looked at like you're broke. You don't want to be looked at like you don't have anything. So your purchases are made for perception, not utility. You're not buying things that you can actually utilize or that have any function at all. You're buying things to create an illusion that's going to sell people on you having more than you actually have. And it only buys temporary relief. It's not security. So even though you think that what you're doing is for your benefit in terms of survival, it's a lie, because it's based on fear, and it's a reactionary move. And it's not done with confidence. It's just fear. Fear is driving most of these choices. So when you buy a Mercedes because you just want people to think you have a lot of money, if you buy a Mercedes and you live in an apartment, what are you doing? What are you doing? If you buy a house that is way bigger than you need because you want to signal to people that you have more money than you actually have, what are you doing? The amount of money that you're going to spend on that property, the amount of money you're going to spend on keeping up that property, maintaining it, one thing about the house is it does have a value, but the smart thing to do when buying a house is to buy less house than you need. If you get approved from the bank to buy $1 million house, you should buy a $500,000 house. People who want to become wealthy buy assets that make money. They don't buy liabilities that cost money. And buying a more house than you need because you want status is buying a giant liability that's going to cost you a lot of money. And don't even get me started on a brand new car. I mean, you end up getting a car and the interest rates are through the roof, and payments now on even a basic car are $600, $700, $800, $900 a month. And that is just absurd, given that a car depreciates in value 25 to 30% the second you drive it off the lot. There goes the value out the window. It's foolish. Leasing Mercedes-Benzes, leasing BMWs. I live in Los Angeles. So many people do this. So many people. And it's crazy. Because it's not doing anything. It's a defensive reaction based on fear to sell yourself as being in a status that you're not at. And so is fine dining. Fine dining is the same thing. You want to go out to a steak restaurant and you want to look like you have money, so you want to go out and buy bottles of champagne and look like you're living that way when you're not. And the amount of money that you're spending doing that is astronomically insane. $200-$300, taking friends out, buying drinks. Look at me, I'm a big money guy. I got money. It kills you every time. Because every dollar that you spend on this useless nonsense is another dollar that's not compounding in your stock portfolio. It's another dollar that you can't put towards buying a business that generates a positive cash flow that could astronomically increase your wealth. It's another dollar that you can't borrow. To every dollar that you have in a stock portfolio, you could borrow up to 80% of it in a line of credit from a bank. So every dollar you spend, you're losing out on borrowing 80 cents. Borrowing 80 cents is amazing when you could use that 80 cents to buy something that can make you more dollars, as well as pay back that 80 cents. And with each dollar that you make, you can now borrow 80 cents on each one of those dollars and then continue to buy other things that make more dollars. You follow me? The loop? Positive wealth cycle. But you're costing yourself that because you're spending a dollar on stuff you don't need to make people think you have more money than you actually have. You need another Instagram selfie. Man, I can't wait until I can post on Facebook that I was at the table buying champagne. What is that doing for you? It's keeping you broke. That's what it's doing for you. It ain't doing anything for you. It is keeping you poor. Status requires maintenance. It isn't something that once you just get, you have it. It's something you have to constantly, when you want status, you're seeking approval. You're seeking validation from other people. That's what you're seeking. And you're spending a lot of money on keeping up appearances, maintaining that facade. And it reduces your flexibility. It's costing you more than money, opportunity. I mean, imagine if someone came to you today and said, hey, I have an opportunity. I'm starting a coffee shop right now. We're going to be making a whole bunch of money. This is what we're going to be making annually. And but I just need some cash flow up front. If you could just give me 10 grand right now, I'll be able to turn that around and I'll be able to give you $1,200 a month for the next 2 years. Well, I mean, if you do the math on that, That would be almost 15 grand a year, which would eventually be 30 grand in 2 years. You could triple your money. That'd be a great investment. But what happens? I don't have $10,000. Why? And I bet you if you look back over your past and look at everything you frivolously and erroneously spent money on that has no value, trying to make yourself look like you had money, you would have the $10,000 to make that investment. Fixed expenses remove options. They take away options from you that are the real form of wealth building and the real form of power. Someone with high payments can't walk away from bad jobs. If you're in a job that you hate, you're not going to be able to quit that job if you're constantly having to spend money on things that you don't need because you want to keep up your status. You're going to become a prisoner to working a job you don't want to do to maintain that status. You get stuck in bad deals. You get stuck in bad investments. So keeping up that status becomes a financial trap. You end up locked in for long periods of time. And it's not good. It's not good. And there's a lot of things, misnomers that are stated about the stock market. Like, yeah, well, stock markets crash. Yeah, well, stock markets are like gambling, or, investing in stocks is like that. That's all. And it's like, what they're not telling you is that if you were investing money in 2001, we've had 4 crashes since then. And yet you'd still be worth millions and millions of dollars today, despite those crashes. Because, yeah, even though we have them in the long term, it's always going to win. It always prevails. Every 10 years, the stock market is worth substantially more than it was 10 years prior. And that's if you just put it in the S&P 500 and call it a day. But if you were investing in actual stocks that have yields, there are some stocks that will give you money, 20% annually. Now understand, 20% of 50 grand might not be a lot of money, but 20% of 200 grand, it's more money. 20% of 500 grand is more money. 20% of $1 million is more money. So you're compounding your wealth. You're putting your money in the stock, and then you're compounding, because as the value of that stock goes up at the end of the year, and the interest the dividend yields that are being paid to you at the end of every year, your money is compounding. And the more money that you end up having, the more money compounds. And then the more money you end up having, the more money compounds. And it's a snowball effect into wealth. And people say, yeah, but I don't even know if I'm going to be alive in 5 years. Well, mathematically, there is a pretty good chance that you'll be alive in 5 years. And you can either make decisions now that will make it so that you're a millionaire in 5 years, or you can continue chasing status. And in 5 years, heaven forbid, you come down with a health condition that you can't afford to you can't afford to pay for. You can't afford the surgery. You can't afford to fix it. You can't afford the health insurance coverage. I mean, you never know what could happen. And so thinking like this is actually a better way of saying, I don't know what can happen in the future. Not, oh, I'm just going to live for today because I don't know what could happen in the future. Probability of you being alive 5 or 10 years from now, unless you're like 80, is pretty high. It's pretty high. Real wealth, it prioritizes the options that can build you more wealth more than it prioritizes approval and the applause of, wow, look at that guy. He's got a pair of Jordans. He must have money. Wow, he's wearing expensive jewelry and diamond necklaces. He's driving around in a Beamer. He must be paid. And the funny thing is, nobody thinks that. Nobody. I drive around LA all the time, and every time I see expensive cars drive by, I don't even notice them. They blend right in with the masses. Like, you're not impressing anyone. You just think you are. What you're doing is you're satiating your own insecurity. And that is probably the biggest addiction that a lot of people who don't have money blow all their money on. Because the person who can leave a negotiation calmly isn't the loudest or the flashiest. It's the one who doesn't need the outcome. It puts you in a space where you're not desperate. Wealth buys you time. Wealth buys you leverage. Wealth buys you the ability to tell people no. You ever heard the phrase F you money? That's wealth. But it's not visible. Somebody could walk in the room that has F you money and you wouldn't know it. They would move slower because they're in no hurry. Their money has bought them plenty of time. They don't even need to use their money to make more money because they have leverage. And you can't see that when they walk in the room, but they have it. They have the ability to tell people no and get to walk home. But they might not have Jordans on. They might have a wrinkly old pair of jeans on with some stained up shoes. Status is what's visible. Wealth is not, but status literally has no value. It has very short-term value. You know, social media is a big cause of this because it reinforces people's social anxiety and status anxiety pretty heavily. Because social media rewards your appearance. You get likes, you get views. You know, this is the reason why there are people who literally go and take photos and videos of themselves standing in front of mansions that they don't even own or in front of Lamborghinis that they don't even own. They'll just see a Lamborghini parked in Beverly Hills and shoot a quick video standing in front of it, talking like they have all this money because they know a bunch of people on social media won't know the difference. And it'll get a bunch of likes and it'll get a bunch of follows. And hopefully they'll be able to turn that into wealth from that view count. And that's what happens because people fall for the okie doke. There's this, social media creates this sort of like comparison problem where everybody wants to compare their lives to other people's. And I'm not going to lecture anybody on that. We all know that. I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know when I say that. But it causes everyone to feel like they're behind. It causes so many people to feel like, why are those people doing so well and I'm not? When in reality, they're not doing better than you. They're just doing better than you at putting up the facade. Chances are they might be doing worse than you because the amount of money they're spending to keep up that facade is extremely expensive and far more expensive than your bills. I can tell you that right now. So overspending has become kind of normalized in our culture where people just assume that everyone else is doing better than them. And so they spend to keep up, not realizing that many of those people are really just carrying debt to maintain this illusion. But if you're looking for financial freedom and a way to get out of that trap, financial freedom does not look impressive. It looks underwhelming. You want to know how I know that? Look at me. I'm not the most, overwhelming presence, right? I'm not the best looking guy. I'm like sitting here with a big boy hat on, a black t-shirt. I'm not flashing any jewelry. You know what I mean? I got the dad bod I'm trying to get rid of, working on it. But I don't really care about how I appear. I know what's going on behind me. I know the things that I'm doing that's allowing me to have a certain level of freedom that a lot of people don't have. That's why I made this channel. But the discipline is invisible. Nobody sees it. And the quiet progress that I make, or people like me make, gets no applause. And stability doesn't impress people. It's not impressive. It doesn't give you that. It doesn't have the allure that status chasing has. But the results come later. And because of the discipline and consistency that yields those results in the long run, that's what gets you respect. And that brings me back to my previous video about the difference between being liked and being respected is, do you want respect or do you want to be liked? Because status is only chasing after being liked. It's chasing after relying on people's moods to agree with you or like you or want something from you, but want to be around you. And it doesn't have any value to be liked. But if you chase wealth and you do it quietly and you have the consistency and the discipline that is required to make those quiet moves over time, people just see the results. It's the same thing with working out. One day, there's a photo of you out with some friends and you have abs. You didn't take a video every day of yourself at the gym. You know, you didn't go on Facebook every day and go, look at me, I'm at the gym. Look at me, I'm at the gym, on the treadmill again, You didn't do that. That's status chasing. No, no one saw you. No one saw you post. You didn't talk about anything. Then one day you just happen to be out with some friends. They end up sharing an image. It shows up on your social media and you got your shirt off and you're jacked. And everybody's like, whoa, this dude got jacked. What happened? He made quiet moves. Quiet ones. Not status chasing, not trying to be loud. You know, driving an average car, living below your means, skipping visible upgrades, it'll feel like you're falling behind. Even when it is the exact behavior that's actually creating your independence and getting you out of the trap. But if you stop spending money to prove something to people that don't matter anyways, and their opinions don't matter, how much leverage would you gain back? How much wealth would you create quietly? How much power through that wealth would you obtain? It's important to think about it because, I mean, it doesn't matter what people think. So chasing that status, you know, don't let it fool you. Don't get caught up in that trap. Anyway, my name is Tom Kane, and this was another episode of Executives Playbook. I've been noticing a pretty huge uptick in my subscriber count lately. I'm loving it. I'm trying to cross the 7,000 mark. So any subscribers, it's great. Always welcome. Please like the video if you liked it. Please give me a comment if there's anything that you want to say. I always read the comments. I always try to engage if people have something of quality to offer the conversation. So please don't hesitate to like, comment, hit the little bell, and I'll be here every day. Thank you guys. I really appreciate you.